Today is October the 25th. Is it okay to cry? Let's find out together as we study the first chapter of Joel. So we've finished the book of Hosea. Today we're starting the first chapter of Joel. We'll look through all of Joel in the next 2 weeks. After the opening statement, the Lord gave this message to Joel, son of Pethuel. We begin to read, Joel begins talking about a plague of locusts. Hear this, you leaders of the people, listen all who live in the land, and all your history as anything like this happened before. Tell your children about it in the years to come. Let your children tell their children. Pass the story down from generation to generation. After the cutting locusts finished eating the crops, the swarming locusts took what was left. After them came the hopping locusts, and then the stripping locusts too. Now, I did want to read this in the NIV. The NIV is a little bit more literal here. Chapter 1, verse 4 says, what the locust swarm has left, the great locusts have eaten. What the great locusts have left, the young locusts have eaten. And what the young locusts have left, other locusts have eaten. Joel talks about 4 different kinds of locusts here, and it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what he's talking about. One possibility is that this is actually one type of locust in 4 stages. One of the locusts that would invade Israel starts in a larval state. They eat the locust, then the young locust comes. As they begin to multiply and they become a swarm, they take on different physical characteristics. You can see that here in this picture. National Geographic actually did a story on a devastating locust attack in Jerusalem. This is all the way back over 100 years ago in 1915. But listen to what they wrote. At the end of February, great clouds of locusts began flying into the land from a northeasterly direction. They go on to report that they counted, and in a 39 square inch, now that would be about a little over 6 inches square, 39 square inches, it was calculated that 60,000 eggs of locusts could be laid. Once hatched, the new brood started crawling across the ground at a rate of 400 to 600 feet per day, devouring every scrap of vegetation in their path. So a locust swarm is devastating. Joel goes on to describe this locust swarm, how it completely took away any vegetation that was there. As a result, in verse 5, wake up, you drunkards, and weep. Wail, all you wine drinkers. All the grapes are ruined. All the sweet wine is gone. In verses 8 and 9, weep like a bride dressed in black, mourning the death of her husband. There's no grain. There's no wine to offer at the temple of the Lord. Later in verse 9, the priests are in mourning. The ministers of the Lord are weeping. The fields are ruined. The land is stripped bare. The grain is destroyed, the grapes have shriveled, the olive oil is gone. All of these were implements that were sacrificed to the Lord. Then in verse 11, despair all you farmers, wail all you vine growers, weep because the wheat and the barley, all the crops of the field are ruined. Now this locust infestation actually does describe 4 stages of locusts. This would have taken place over a 3 to 6 month period. What that means is that the entire crop for that year, everything was absolutely destroyed. As a result, in verse 12, the last line says, the people's joy has dried up with them. Now, harvest was a time that normally you would celebrate. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 3, Isaiah says, you will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They'll rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest. Harvest was a time for joy. There was no harvest. Their joy dried up. We started with the question, is it okay to cry? Actually, it is. Don't be afraid to show the Lord the depth of your emotion. David frequently would cry before the Lord. We saw other kings and other major figures in Israel who would not be afraid to cry before the Lord. Take a look at your own life today. Is there something that you need to cry to the Lord about? Don't be afraid to show your emotions to God. Like, follow, and subscribe to this devotional on whatever platform you use to listen to it. Email your questions to us at questions@becomehope.com. Tomorrow we'll answer the question, what is the day of the Lord?